Hello and welcome to this lesson on language under the microscope, and we're going to be looking at this text. Welcome to Ireland, which, as it says at the top here, is an extract from the introductory page of Lonely Planet's Guide to Exploring Ireland, written by the editor. That would mean, obviously, it being a guide, it being Lonely Planet, then it's probably going to be aimed at anyone who's doing some travelling, basically. So we can just call them travellers in the sense of tourist type of traveller, yes. And it's quite good to name the actual reader if you can with language on the microscope, because it stops you from being too generic. Written by the editor, so there is presumably an actual kind of voice behind it. Always a really good idea when you start to actually really interrogate that. In fact, it's the introductory page, that could be useful. A Lonely Planet, if you happen to know, then that's useful. It is a recognised brand in the travel guide industry, if that makes sense. It's been around for quite a long time. You don't know that, but I know so I can share. Alright, we'll start by reading the text. So, welcome to Ireland, a small country with a big reputation, helped along by a breathtaking ancient landscape and fascinating, friendly people, whose lyrical nature is expressed in the warmth of their welcome. A scenic wonderland. Don't think the island of postcards is just a two-dimensional fiction. It very much exists. You'll find it along the peninsulas of the southwest, in the brooding loneliness of Connemara, and the dramatic wildness of County Donegal. It can be uncovered in the lakelands of counties Leitrim and Roscommon, undulating hills of the sunny southeast. Brave the raging Atlantic on crossing into Skellig Michael, or spend a summer's evening in the yard of a thatched cottage pub, and you'll experience an island that has changed and lived for generations. The rich historical heritage. History presents itself everywhere, from the breathtaking monuments of prehistoric Ireland at Brunabon, Slayhead and Kerry and Carrymore and Sligo, to the fabulous ruins of Ireland's rich monastic past at Glendalough and Clonmacnoise. Recently, is visible in the Titanic Museum, Cobb, and the forbidding Kilmainham jail in Dublin. And its history so young that it's still considered to be the present. Best experienced on the Black Taxi tour of West Belfast, or an examination of Derry's colourful political murals. A cultural web. You'll be overwhelmed by the cultural choices in Northern Ireland. See a play by one of the theatrical greats in Dublin, experience a traditional music session at West Island Pub, or attend a rock gig in a Limerick saloon. Irish summer is awash with festivals, celebrating everything from flowers in bloom to high literature. A warm welcome. On the plane and along your travels, you might hear it said, I'm afraid I can't do the pronunciation of these. That one's done sort of for you, isn't it? Tor Folcha Roat. So if it's Folcha, then I suppose Thead Mila Felcha. The next one, I don't know. You're very welcome, or more famously, Sead Mila Felcha, 100,000 welcomes. Irish friendliness is a tired cliché, an oversimplification of a character that is infinitely complex, but the Irish are nonetheless warm and welcoming. Whenever you meet them, there's a good chance that a conversation will begin. Pleasantries will be exchanged, and should you be a stranger in town, offer a helping hand extended. But lest you think this is merely an act of unempathetic altruism, rest assured that the comfort they seek is actually their own, but the Irish cannot be at ease in the company of those who aren't. 100,000 welcomes. It seems excessive, but in Ireland, excess is encouraged, so long as it's practiced. Joke, get that? Right, so we'll start off with 1A, and I'm going to make a suggestion to you, or a request really, that you look at this list here that I've got up here and see if you can actually come up with examples for each one of these, alright? So I will just pause that on the thing. Now if you don't know any of these, and I'm thinking pretty much all of them you either know, or if you don't know them you could go to the glossary, yes, our big glossary, and look them up so that you've got a sense. And I've mashed a couple together, so a noun phrase and a metaphor. I'm just saying that the noun phrase and the metaphor will pack together. That's what you're looking for there. Okay, go along and see if you can find all of these. Obviously, the bottom one, use of the definite article. I don't mean just any use of the. I'm obviously in each of these. I'm thinking, is there something you can find that you would then go on to be able to write about? Does that make sense? So have a go at that. You should probably spend, I don't know, 5, 10, maybe up to half an hour on this and see how you get on. All right. So pause it and do that. By the way, if you don't have the text, which I think you should have because I've given it out, or it's been given out to you. But if you don't have the text, I'll just put that on the screen there now. And if you pause the video, you can just simply screenshot that, can't you? And then use that. Alright? I'll make sure it's available somewhere else as well. Good. So that's your list. I'll leave that on the screen. If you pause the video now, you can get on with it. Okay, so you should be about half an hour into this task. And I've now got here, as you can see, two things. So this top list here is mine, and the bottom list is actually featuring the actual exam, what they call the indicative content, that the author of the exam, who happens to be somebody in our very own department, the author of the exam writes as a note to the examiner as things that they might be looking for the students producing in their answers. Does that make sense? So you can see there are 6 pointers there. I've mashed them together. What I'm trying to basically say is there are an enormous number. Now this big list here is actually all, you can see a lot of it is features as well in the bullet points below, the ones from the exam board. But this list is actually you lot. It is actually got from students. Just demonstrates to you what wonderful ideas you have. The challenge of language under the microscope, particularly as you come towards the end, and this is designed to be a bit of a revision video here, is to do enough of them in the time. Maybe you found that. So you find maybe one good idea and you get that down and you think, right, that's it, I'm exhausted now. And you really need 3 or 4 for 1A and 3 or 4 for 1B. Yeah? Alright, I don't think I need to go through any of these. By the way, altruism is generosity without expecting anything in return. That's what that says there. And the other thing I'll just will draw your attention to here is that when you've got nouns that are kind of interesting, heritage, by the way, is an abstract noun, and it features in the text. It's actually in one of the headings, therefore it's kind of being invited to be written about, isn't it? Actually thinking about synonyms for words is sometimes what will help you when you're actually trying to do interpretation and trying to get that depth which we keep talking about in our answers. So when I think of heritage, I think of the past, I think of culture, yes, the idea of you having a cultural heritage. I'm thinking possibly of ethnicity, the idea that is your kind of, your background, where you come from, and also your history. It's all packed into heritage and useful work for somebody to write, something like a guide like this. And the definite article, by the way, here, as you can see, the point here is that normally you would talk about Irish people, yes? If you say the Irish people, but then if you say the Irish, what you've done is you've taken the modifier, Irish, and made it into a noun, effectively. And it therefore means their Irishness is more important than their peopleness, if that makes sense. So that, to me, it's okay, because all of the things they're saying are positive. But it has that danger of kind of being slightly glib and slightly stereotypical, if not very stereotypical, depending on your point of view. It's okay to take a bit of an angle on a text, because you can get some interesting things out of it. Alright, so what I want you to then do, so I'd now like you to go through make sure each of these is highlighted in the text. All right? And then do this. So the first stage is you take the actual term, in this case it's a noun phrase, and then you pick an example of it, which you may find I've already done for you. You make sure that you've got the pattern identified. In this case you have a cultural well, a warm welcome, a rich cultural heritage, in which case AC Wonderland. In most cases it is indefinite article, yeah? Then the adjective, single modifier, and then the noun. In each case the noun, I think Wonderland and heritage and welcome are both abstract nouns. And well is not an abstract noun, but is being used metaphorically. So this was the one I was suggesting as a metaphorical noun phrase, right? And then unpack it. What does the point mean? Well, when you go into it, you can see there's a big long list of different things that you can experience, which we can come to in 1b. But when we're talking about 1a, well, what does well suggest to you? Well, suggests to me depth. It suggests that it has, it's hard to even see the bottom of it. It suggests that where you would go to a well for water, you go to a cultural well for culture. So culture is almost like a thing that keeps you alive. Right? Yeah? Does that make sense? That's essentially what I'm after. So I'd like you to do that. It's going to take you a long time now. It could take you at least half an hour for well, ideally all of these on your own, see if you can. So that what you're doing is you're identifying the pattern, then you are digging deep. And then, next stage is to write them up. Okay? And here I've done this one for you. Each of the subheadings are noun phrases which represent something about Ireland as the guide sees it and sum up the text below. For example, the metaphorical noun phrase, a cultural well, suggests that culture is like water, essential to life, and is, in Ireland, virtually bottomless. Okay? Obviously, I've worked that over very carefully to make sure that it's not too long. There are 2 points in there, and I always say to you, try and make 3 to 5 points. I think you probably get credited with both. But, or you could look at it this way. You could say, well, here I've identified a pattern, yes? Then I've gone on to say why that pattern is there. Then I've gone on to identify a single example, right, so I can get some depth. I've gone on to analyse why that is there. Yes? And when you take the two together, you've got that kind of evaluative quality. Remember, you should try where you can to weigh up. Well, you're doing that really by going, culture is like water and Ireland is virtually bottomless. In other words, I'm kind of evaluating and working out different strands to the use of this particular metaphorical noun phrase. All right? So I want you to write as many of these as you can do in the lesson time that I'm giving you. I'm giving you an hour and a half, and that's not all. Right? So I don't know how long this has taken you so far. Are you half an hour in, 45 minutes in? Here again is the second part. This is 1b, right? And what I want you to do for 1b is I want you to find 10, all of these 10, okay? I will just talk very briefly about a noun phrase in apposition. I've got an example here. So John, comma, a sulky boy, sat in the corner. Poor John. Sorry for John already. And the point I'm trying to make here is that a noun phrase in apposition, rather than opposition, is essentially working to post-modify this single noun, which is the subject. It's a proper noun, yes, John, is being post-modified with this phrase, which is working with, not against, the subject, John, giving you more information about him before you then go on to have the verb, which is sit, and then the adverbial, where, in the call. All right? That, by the way, is a preposition phrase, because you've got the preposition in, yeah? But it is doing, we use blue for this, an adverbial job. Does that make sense? That's how you kind of, when you're going big or doing little. This thing here is called this is called a preposition phrase. Its job is adverbial, telling you when, where, or how. In this case, of course, it's telling you where. The rest of these, parenthesis, by the way, is just posh word for brackets, really. Antithetical pair, so that's antithesis, two things that are working antithetically, opposite one another. Coordinate clause uses a minor sentence, so if you start the clause with and. Passive voice, I'm not going through that now, there's lots of places you can find out about that. It's a really good idea to revise all these while you're doing this if you don't know what they are. Parallel phrasing, again, you can look that up, but that's a sort of syntactic parallelism. Things are similar structure, but obviously the words in each part of the clause or each clause change. Complex sentence, you know, and I've just done prepositional phrase with adverbial functions. Right? Pause the video. Get that text in front of you finally time, please. Alright, so let's hope you've now done that. And roll call. You can see here I've given you quite a lot of examples. I'm not going to read through all of those, but again, I'd like you to work up and annotate your text so you've got them all in there, please. Okay? And then the next stage on from there, which I'm going to haven't done for you, is why. Why? And I'm going to, in real time for this one, I'm going to write one of these. Now, which one shall I do? It's really interesting. I want to do something I'm going to do this one here, okay? Coordinate clause as a minor sentence, okay? So, okay? And you go across to the text, and you find this little east here, okay. Right, 100,000 welcome. We would call this a minor sentence. Why would we call it a minor sentence? Because it is not a proper sentence. It doesn't have a verb in it. It is just actually a noun phrase. In this case, though, so I'm doing the wrong one. I'll carry on. So this is the one for minor sentences. Coordinate, by the way, if you're looking for the other one, there it is. Okay, it starts here. But it's the coordinate clause, isn't it? The coordinate conjunction. So 100,000 welcomes. Why has the writer, the editor here, chosen to pick this out as a minor sentence? What do you think? Well, my suggestion is, first of all, I think it anchors or brings back, it returns rather sort of what we would call kind of cohesively tying this section together on the subject of the warm welcome. I think it's honestly rather hyperbolic. Do you agree? It's ridiculous. How can you have 100,000 welcomes? You couldn't. There's no way. Even if you there's no way unless you were there for kind of 10 years. You're unlikely to have 100,000 welcomes. I think. So it's hyperbolic. It's really laying on the point, and then it's then picked up in the next sentence. It seems excessive. Excess is encouraged as long as it's practiced in moderation, which of course is a little joke, which I'm not going to deal with now, but you get the idea. So in a sense, it is hyperbolic. It is, but that's kind of unashamedly hyperbolic, because the point they're trying to make is that this warmth is so striking that hyperbole needs to be used, and then you look at that and connect it up with the point that we've probably already made it. 100,000 welcomes, so it's tying back to that, which itself is in Irish. Yes, so you don't really need to introduce it again with a verb. In fact, it's not actually introduced properly with a verb here either. It's quoting the Irish, yeah, So, or re-quoting the translation. So that's also cohesive because it's about the Irish culture and what they like. And then when you look at welcome, 100,000 welcomes, welcome, warm, friendliness. Are you with me? It's overdone, but there's a reason for that. That's because it's the point we're trying to make. So how would I then go on? I would say. I might cheat here actually a bit. I'm going to pause and have a think and then I will write it once I've thought it through. Here we go then. Alright, so I'll do it in real time for you. In the A warm welcome section, I'm going to get my term in as I introduce the quote. Right? The use of the minor sentence. 100,000 welcomes. Near the end, ties the section together on the theme of welcoming. It repeats the translation of the Irish and enforces the idea and then you can go on, maybe finish it off, talk about the idea of this is of course hyperbolic and deliberately simplistic, possibly even stereotypical, but then on the other hand it is a guide, and that's the point of a guide, is you're not there for subtlety, are you? You're there for pushing across a particular image, if you like, a representation, if you will, of a particular culture that is going to be positive. You're never going to have a negative portrayal, although, I mean, I'm waffling now, but there are all sorts of interesting things in this text that I noticed, and I don't know if you got to this one when you were doing the euphemism thing, but I think this is euphemistic here, because it's talking about a colourful political mural. Colourful, I mean, I don't know if you know anything about the Troubles, do you know about Belfast? But it was absolutely ripped apart for quite a long time in the 70s, 60s, 70s and into the 80s by a sort of essentially like a mini civil war between Catholic and Protestant. And the murals on the walls of Derry, which at one point was Londonderry, it was renamed Londonderry, the British rule, I think. I need to go back and check my history on it. But anyway, as you can imagine, it would, for anyone who is an Irish nationalist, probably Catholic nationalist, wanting Ireland to be one country, to call something Londonderry would be, I don't know, would be kind of promoting a culture that you absolutely would not want. So they renamed it Derry. And so colourful political murals doesn't even come anywhere near it. You've probably got images of, possibly, of fighters who some would see as terrorists, so that if you're an Irish nationalist, you'd see them as kind of freedom fighters. In other words, politically highly contentious. But you can't put that, can you, in the Lonely Planet Guide? They've got to get it in there somewhere. So they use a slightly euphemistic, colourful, beautiful murals. Now, if you don't know that, don't worry about it. You don't write about it. I happen to know about it. I'd get stuck into that. Okay? So, here's one of these then. I would like you, ideally please, to write 10 of those. Okay? You really, really do yourself such a big favour if you could do that. In total, this should take you at least 90 minutes to do, folks. I would like to see the product of it. Okay? I'd like to see the product of it. And I'm going to set that up as an assignment, probably, depending on when this is being set for you. So you may find that it's not been set as an assignment for you, but as I'm speaking right now, it is set up as an assignment and will be linked through to a request and a message on Teams, okay? And I'd like that done so I can see it. I won't necessarily mark it, but I'd like to see it done. However much you can do in the time, 90 minutes plus a bit of homework time, all right? I wish you the very best. I hope you found this useful, and I will talk to you soon.